The King's Avatar, Chapter 1602, a fully deserved win. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1602, a fully deserved win. Translator, Gnome Yummy. Editor, Gnome Yummy. Artillery shells began being fired again. Before Suma-chung circled around to where she could see Lu Boyuan, she began using the splash damage from her launcher attacks to hit behind the stalagmite. An electronic eye was released again to expand her view from another angle. Step by step, steadily and surely, Suma-chung played patiently. Her attacks weren't dense, even though she was using more normal attacks. Normal attacks didn't use mana. Their threat was low, but they were AoE attacks nonetheless. She didn't know where exactly Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was located, but it didn't matter if her attacks hit. If they hit, then it would deal some damage. If they didn't, then it would scare him. Lu Boyuan was indeed feeling the pressure. He had thought of the possibility that Suma-chung would chase after him, but he hadn't expected her to play so patiently. Artillery shell after artillery shell landed beside Chaotic Cloudy Mountain. Sometimes they landed far from him. Other times they landed close to him. Evidently, the other side wasn't certain of his location. But at the same time, Lu Boyuan didn't know her location. When he had taken cover behind the stalagmite, he had turned around to confirm her location one last time. However, it had been some time since then. As a result, he had no way of figuring out how far away Suma-chung was from him. He had no way of knowing whether rushing out from hiding would be an opportunity for him. He also had no way of knowing how much cover the stalagmite was giving him. All that remained was pressure. Explosions were still happening all around him. Lu Boyuan hadn't forgotten that Suma-chung had electronic eye. The electronic eye didn't need to be placed right in front of him. As long as it was looking at him from a different angle than Dancing Rain, Suma-chung would be able to attack him more precisely. Her calm attacks showed that she was still feeling him out. He couldn't keep waiting. He need to act, but should he advance or retreat? He need to make a decision. Lu Boyuan checked his surroundings. The terrain wasn't ideal. He could try and move towards another stalagmite. It was somewhat far though, so this third option didn't seem to be a good one this time. Could it be Suma-chung had intentionally let him move here? Had she known that this place was a dead end? No, it couldn't be considered a dead end. Lu Boyuan was familiar with the map. When he had looked at this stalagmite, he had checked which nearby ones he could move to. But now, Lu Boyuan turned around. The direction he wanted to move towards would leave him open to Dancing Rain's attacks. This path hadn't originally been a dead end. However, Suma-chung had blocked the path, turning it into one. He had fallen into Suma-chung's grasp. This was why she was calm and unhurried. Okay, even if that was the case, he couldn't hesitate. He was trapped in a corner, and his only choice was to force his way out of it. Facing this predicament, Lu Boyuan didn't become discouraged. Instead, he strengthened his resolve because there was no other way out. He would have to create his own bloody path. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain spun around to the other side of the stalagmite, exposing half of his body to the open. Dancing Rain saw him. Her electronic eye saw him too. Suma-chung reacted quickly, immediately adjusting her aim and firing at him. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain hastily pulled back, but the explosion landed right beside him. The splash damage hit him, and Chaotic Cloudy Mountain rolled on the ground to reduce the knockback. Then, he got up and went to the other side to try again. Left or right? Suma-chung only had two choices. As a result, Lu Boyuan had Chaotic Cloudy Mountain expose his left side to as a feint to shift her attention over to the left. Then, he immediately rushed out from the opposite side to the right. He was fighting for this tiny opening. Last chance. Lu Boyuan knew it was his last chance. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain moved like the wind as he charged towards Dancing Rain. Boom. Suma-chung fired at him as she jumped back, using the recoil to retreat. Dancing Rain didn't try to stand her ground and attack. With chaotic Cloudy Mountain charging towards her relentlessly, she needed to keep away from him. Fire and smoke surrounded chaotic Cloudy Mountain. He dodged and ran. There was only one option left for him: get closer. If he could get close to her, even if he was at his last breath, he would still have a chance. One advanced while the other retreated. A chase had begun. The distance was slowly closing, but chaotic Cloudy Mountain's health was slowly dropping too. From 42% to 35% to 30% to 20%. I can catch her. Lu Boyuan was ecstatic. He had calculated it. He would be able to hang on until he reached Dancing Rain. This was the small opening that he had fought for in the beginning. That small opening allowed Lu Boyuan to perceive that Suma Chung's offense wasn't perfect. Her tempo was slightly off, and the distance hadn't been perfect for her firing line. She had put pressure on him and blocked off his escape, but it wasn't nearly as focused and oppressive as before. I can do it. I can do it. This time, I have to seize this opportunity properly. I don't have much health, but it doesn't matter. 10% is enough as long as I don't let Dancing Rain escape. 5 steps. 5 steps away. The next step he took would be the turning point. Once Suma Chung was 5 steps away, there would be huge holes in her launcher's offense. Suma Chung might be able to use her experience to cut that distance down to 3 or 4 steps, but nevertheless, with this next step, her threat would be drastically reduced. He would be the one in control. Lu Boyuan stared intently at Dancing Rain. He couldn't make any mistakes. Suddenly, he saw Dancing Rain suddenly put away her hand cannon and take out a rifle. Gun switching style? Lu Boyuan felt his heart tighten. The gun switching style, or the weapon switching style, had its clever uses in combat. One of these uses was to help give the character another skill, since a skill could be attached to each weapon. Dancing Rain had suddenly switched to a rifle. Perhaps it was to increase her attack speed, but launchers that didn't use their class-specific weapon would deal significantly less damage. In addition, they lose the bonus from their class advancement skill. Heavy gunfire control. All of their skills would become less effective. As a result, she wouldn't be using her launcher skills to retake control. What's more, the rifle was only slightly faster than the hand cannon. Then, it was very likely that the bonus skill on the rifle could turn things around. What could it be? WuxiaWorldAudio.com. Luckily, she wasn't an unspecialized, so there was no need to consider skills from all 24 classes. He could narrow it down to the 4 gunner classes. However, instantly coming up with an answer was too difficult. He could only be wary of it. At this moment, the rifle began to fire at him. What is it? Lu Boyuan opened his eyes wide. He noticed something rise up from Dancing Rain's feet. It was a mounted gun. What? Lu Boyuan wasn't the only one surprised. Hadn't mounted gun just been used? This level 75 skills cooldown wasn't so short. It couldn't a mounted gun from her rifle. If the skill added to the weapon wasn't a new skill, then the skill level would be raised by 1. It didn't mean that the user would have 2 of the same skill. It wasn't possible for it to be a mounted gun. Switching to a rifle wouldn't refresh the skill and get rid of its cooldown. Refresh. He understood now. It was the sharpshooter skill, dual load. It was a skill that let the user instantly refresh a skill on cooldown, and Suma Chung had chosen to refresh mounted gun. So it's like that. Lu Boyuan let out a bitter laugh. He hadn't expected Suma Chung to come out with this move. This was his loss. Grappler grab skills were high-priority moves, but there were things that couldn't be grabbed, such as the Summoner's Devil World Flower. Once it put down its roots, it could not be moved. Grappler grab skills would only deal damage. There would be no secondary effects. To put it simply, grab skills only dealt damage when used against targets that could not be moved. A launcher using mounted gun was considered a target that could not be moved. His grabs would only deal damage. he wouldn't be able to stop Dancing Rain from attacking. Mounted gun would increase her attack power by a massive amount. It would also increase her defense and give her super armor. There was no way to stop a launcher using mounted gun from attacking. Suma-chung could easily finish him off. She would simply have to sacrifice a bit of health to do so. Boom! A satellite beam descended, and Chaotic Cloudy Mountain fell. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain didn't have much health left. He could not retreat. During his final moments, he could only try to deal as much damage as possible to Dancing Rain. When he fell, he was able to take out 28% of Dancing Rain's health. Even though his grabs didn't have secondary effects, just the damage alone was frightening. Unfortunately, Chaotic Cloudy Mountain didn't have much health left. If he could survive a bit longer, it would be hard to say who would win. Happy's Suma-chung had won with 59% health, giving Happy a substantial lead. This fight had the clearest winner and loser in the group arena so far. In the match between Zhang Boteo and Mofan, when Zhang Boteo had no skills available, Mofan had given him quite the beating. In this match, although Liu Boyuan was able to take out 28% of Dancing Rain's health during his final moments, much more than what Suma-chung did to him during that period of time, it couldn't really be said that he had the upper hand the majority of the battle. Ever since Suma-chung was able to escape from his grasp, Suma-chung took complete control over the fight. She fully deserved this win. End chapter.
The King's Avatar, Chapter 1603. Believe in the Power of Love. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1603. Believe in the Power of Love. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. In the group arena, Happy finally established a clear lead for themselves. Liu Boyuan quietly left the stage. The Samsara fans in the stadium didn't blame him though. In this round, no matter who won or lost, it would be very easy to widen the gap between the two teams. This was something that any experienced Glory player would understand, simply due to the two players' classes. One was a launcher, and the other was a grappler. If an appropriate distance was maintained, the grappler would simply have no way to land attacks on the launcher. If the grappler could close the distance and latch onto the launcher wouldn't be able to put up a proper fight. Victory and defeat would be determined by the to and fro of controlling the distance. The resulting difference in health would definitely be influenced by the disparity in distance control between the two players, something decided by the uniqueness of their classes. In the end, the result really was determined by such logic. Samsara still had two players left. Would they be able to close the gap? The audience gazed at Samsara's player bench, waiting for their fourth player to take the stage. Du Ming. Samsara's fourth player was Du Ming, meaning that one of their ace players, Sun Xiang, was set to come out as their fifth, a somewhat conservative arrangement. After Zhou Zekai was the first to take the stage, the one viewed as the second best in 1v1s, Sun Xiang, wasn't a third or fourth player, but instead their last. The purpose for this was already something that people had started to discuss as soon as the list of players for the group arena had first been broadcasted. But at this time, when Samsara had fallen behind, needing to win a 2 versus 2.5, having Du Ming go up first and Sun Xiang bringing up the rear seemed more stable. Conservative, but also stable. As Du Ming rose from the player benches while talking to his teammates, he couldn't help but cast a glance at Happy's player bench. But no matter how many times he swept his gaze across, Tang Ro still continued to single-mindedly watch the review of the previous round that was being played on the large TV screen. What's the point in looking? It's not like anyone's looking back. Someone on Samsara's side noticed Du Ming's wandering gaze and said, "Could she be avoiding me?" Du Ming said to himself, "You joker, quickly get on stage." Quote, Most of the Samsara players couldn't take it anymore. Du Ming raised his head, looking at the list of players for both teams displayed on the large screen. If he wanted to face off against Tang Rou, he had no choice but to fight till the very end. That meant that not only did he have to beat Su Mucheng, whose character was still at 59% health, he also had to beat their next player, Fang Rui. He had to do his best. Du Ming silently clenched his fists, firmly walking towards the stage. "Is this why you kept suggesting that he play fourth?" Jiang Botao watched all of Du Ming's actions and asked the cleric player, Fang Minghua. "Believe in the power of love." Fang Minghua wore an experienced look on his face. As one of the few Maori players in the Glory Alliance, he felt that he had a particular authority on the topic. On top of that, most of the players in the community were still very young, and were always on the computer, meaning that most of them didn't even have a girlfriend. At the very least, it's safe. Jiang Botao evidently didn't allow for this arrangement of players due to such a childish-sounding reason. More importantly, he believed that having Sun Xiang as the fifth player to bring up the rear was a more dependable decision. So in the end, Samsara's decision meant that they would bear witness to the power of love. Happy's group arena arrangements almost always seem to have Tang Rou as their anchor. By putting Du Ming as the fourth player, if he happens to directly run into Tang Rou, he will use everything he has to defeat her, to make her take note of his abilities. If he doesn't run into Tang Rou, then he will use everything he has to kill his way to this goal. Once again, Fang Minghua expounded on why he believed in this particular arrangement. "Brilliant," Jiang Botao nodded and said. Everyone else was completely speechless. Perhaps only their vice-captain would be able to accept all of these things without batting an eyelid. Everyone felt that Du Ming's looked extremely solemn and tragic as he walked onto the stage. What exactly was he fighting for? Du Ming walked onto the stage and entered his player booth. A new round began as the characters loaded in. Within Samsara, Du Ming could definitely be considered part of the main force, even though his fame wasn't as resounding as Zhou Zekai and the rest. That being said, in the recent few years, Samsara had invested more and more into their team, making remarkable improvements to all of their characters. Even his Blade Master, Moon Luring Frost, could now be counted as being mostly kitted out in silver gear. The lightsaber in his hands, Ice Shards, didn't have a high-class sounding name, but after repeated refinement, it was now considered to be one of Glory's top 10 swords by many players, so it was clearly exceptional. Deep breaths. Du Ming calmed himself. At this time, he couldn't afford to think too much about Tang Rou, who had yet to take the field. WuxRWorldAudio.com. If he wanted to have a decisive battle with her, he still had to get past the next two obstacles. Now, he would concentrate and take out Su Mucheng first. Battle start. Du Ming's attitude was resolute. Moon Luring Frost quickly set off, directly moving towards the center path. On Su Mucheng's side, Dancing Rain also didn't opt to take a roundabout way, and similarly headed for the center. However, she knew that the center path had a stalactite running from top to bottom, which would block her view of the other side. As such, Dancing Rain strategically headed in a slightly slanted direction from the beginning, so that her view wouldn't be blocked by the stalactite. Advance. The distance between the two characters continued to shrink. Just when the respective players had advanced halfway, Du Ming's Moon Luring Frost instead changed his direction, heading horizontally to the side. He didn't resolutely take the middle path, as everyone had expected. Once he had taken the middle path halfway, he suddenly started to take a roundabout route. The roundabout route wasn't that far away, but with the field of view from the strategic angle that Soo-Chung had Dancing Rain take, she wouldn't be able to notice Moon-Luring Frost's movement. With regards to using the stalagmites in this map, all of Samsara's players were extremely masterful. With the final path that Du-Ming's Moon-Luring Frost took, instead of calling it a roundabout route, it was more like the strategic angle that Soo-Chung had taken, slightly offset from the center. It was just that this slight slant made full use of the distributions of the stalactites. Obviously, this was a route that Samsara had researched to advance towards the center while still being able to conceal oneself. Soo-Chung's Dancing Rain reached the middle of the map and stopped moving. Seeing that her opponent hadn't appeared, that meant that he hadn't taken the middle path, or that he had hidden himself. Even though she didn't exactly know what trick Du-Ming had pulled. After these few rounds, the way in which Samsara used the stalagmites in this map was something that an experienced player like Soo-Chung could already faintly infer. Instead of advancing, Soo-Chung had Dancing Rain use an electronic eye. Afterwards, Soo-Chung began advancing again, but she maintained an appropriate distance with each and every stalactite within her field of view. Her footsteps were so soft that the match was suddenly devoid of sound, as if someone had muted it. Through their omniscient point of view, the audience could see that both the characters were moving closer to each other, step by step. However, Dancing Rain maintaining a cautious distance from any stalagmite meant that Du-Ming didn't have any opportunity to make a move. The Blade Master wasn't like the grappler that required a zero-distance confrontation, but it still couldn't take a long-ranged fight. In reality, this match actually followed very similar logic to the previous one. What would happen next? Everyone held their breaths and watched on. End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1604 Extraordinary Du-Ming. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1604 Extraordinary Du-Ming. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Moon-Luring Frost's head suddenly poked out from behind the stalagmite. Boom. Cannon fire immediately shot towards him. It was certainly unfortunate timing for Moon-Luring Frost. He had come out just when Dancing Rain was aimed towards him. When Soo-Chung saw him, she immediately pulled the trigger. The artillery shells were aimed at the edges of the stalagmite instead of directly towards Moon-Luring Frost. Soo-Chung had taken into account that Du-Ming's Moon-Luring Frost would be able to take cover in time. As a result, she went for the splash damage instead, while simultaneously having Dancing Rain circle around to get to a different angle. However, Moon-Luring Frost didn't take cover. He came out of hiding completely. The artillery shell exploded, and the shockwave spread out, but Moon-Luring Frost was unaffected. How? Dancing Rain was startled. Moon-Luring Frost suddenly rushed out. Behind him were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Moon-Luring Frosts followed behind in quick succession. Shadow steps. Du-Ming had used shadow steps. The Moon-Luring Frost that had been unaffected by the first shot was evidently a fake shadow. The shadows created from shadow steps were different from ninja shadow clones. Shadow steps produced after images, which couldn't be damaged. As long as the skill wasn't interrupted, these after images could not be destroyed. To interrupt the skill, you need to hit the true body. Du-Ming was able to produce 6 shadows. He had the ability to produce more, but not to this level of perfection. Soo-Chung had already eliminated one of the possibilities with her first shot, but which one among the other 5 was the real one? Soo-Chung couldn't distinguish between them from observation alone. In that case, she could only test them out one by one using attacks. Gatling gun. Dancing Rain lifted up a Gatling gun and swept across. The bullets flew towards the 5 untested moon-luring frosts. However, the 5 moon-luring frosts weren't just standing there like sitting ducks. Under Du Ming's control, all of them went in different directions to hide and dodge the incoming attacks. The audience suddenly realized that when Du Ming chose to hide behind this specific stalagmite, his objective hadn't simply been because he could no longer move covertly after reaching it. When the shadows from shadow steps scattered, the arrangement of the surrounding stalagmites was perfect for their escape. To dodge the Gatling gun, the 5 shadows went straight for the closest stalagmite. This didn't seem to be an impromptu decision. It seemed more like something he had practiced. Du Ming had clearly studied this map on his own in order to coordinate his shadow step with the surrounding terrain. Su Mucheng realized that the situation wasn't good. With the shadows scattered, she didn't know which one to target. She didn't know which one posed the most threat to her. The terrain was perfect for Du Ming right now. Retreat first. Su Mucheng had Dancing Rain retreat. However, Du Ming didn't stop to rest after disrupting Su Mucheng's offense. The shadows immediately rushed out again, coming towards her from different directions. Which one was real? Let alone Su Mucheng. Even the viewers didn't know. Which one was the real threat? 5 shadows, 5 swords flashing with a dangerous light. Su Mucheng discovered that she had no safe way to escape. Under Du Ming's meticulously practiced pursuit, from the scattered shadows back to a combined assault, all of her retreat paths were blocked. Her only choice was to figure out which one was real and attack it, or run away and leave it up to luck. Her chances were quite high. There was only one real one. All the others were fake and wouldn't actually deal any damage to her. If she chose one to rush towards, there was a high probability that she would run into a fake one. But pro blade masters wouldn't just watch quietly as the opponent ran recklessly towards one of the shadows. They would adjust what their shadows did depending on their opponent's movements. The shadow that you run towards might try to avoid you, but that didn't mean it was necessarily the fake one. The shadow charging towards you filled with killing intent might not be the real one. Experienced blade masters would control their shadows to make it very difficult to tell which one was real or fake. Choosing which one to go towards wasn't as simple as a gambling on chance. It would also test the opponent's courage and resolve. Which one will she choose? Du Ming stared intently at Dancing Rain. He was certain that Su Mucheng would end up choosing one of the shadows to move towards, but no matter which one she chose, Du Ming had a way to make Dancing Rain take damage. He was confident because he had practiced this shadow step formation numerous times. The distance between any 2 shadows seemed random, but in reality, the distance had been carefully studied so that it was optimal. And then, through practice, he was able to set up this formation in a short amount of time. Come. Choose one. Let's end this fight. Du Ming was waiting. Finally, Dancing Rain moved. However, she didn't seem to move towards any of the shadows. She moved towards the center of their combined attacks. What is she thinking? Du Ming stared blankly at her. Dancing Rain lifted her arm, pointing her cannon into the air as if she were giving out a signal. Satellite beam. Du Ming immediately recognized what skill she planned on using. Had she somehow figured out which one was real? Impossible. Du Ming had even watched his own recordings when he practiced this 5 shadow step assault. He didn't remember which one was the real body, and he couldn't figure out which one was the real body either. Du Ming's execution of this tactic had reached perfection. There was no way she knew. She was probably bluffing, baiting me into making a mistake. Du Ming concluded. His control over his shadow steps was unaffected. The shadows grew closer and closer. Boom. The satellite beam descended, unexpectedly with Dancing Rain in the middle. The smaller pillars of light spinning around the main pillar swept through the surroundings. Since I can't get you to make a mistake, then I'll just attack all 5. 6 pillars of light spread outwards. The 5 shadows were too close. 2 of them were immediately swallowed by 2 of the pillars. These 2 shadows weren't affected by the attack. Fakes. 3 more. Sumuchung was just about to check them, when a sword light flashed in front of her. A blue light tore through the satellite beam. Meteor form. The sword light was like a meteor, weaving between 2 smaller light pillars, straight into the main light pillar. A streak of red blood splashed into the air. Then, curving wind form. The blood suddenly curved back in the opposite direction, bringing dancing rain along with it. Colliding stab. After 2 level 75 Blade Master skills, Du Ming followed with a low-level Berserker skill. However, this skill was the key to breaking open this situation. Moon Luring Frost's weapon, Lingering Ice, pressed against Dancing Rain's stomach. When a Blade Master used Colliding Stab, the attack wouldn't have as fearsome of a knockback. But it was enough to carry along the opponent outwards. WuxaWorldAudio.com. Moon Luring Frost escaped from the satellite beam's range, dragging Dancing Rain along with him. The stadium erupted with thunderous applause. Du Ming had made a brilliant play. The AoE from the launcher's satellite beam seemed to be non-existent to him. Such precise movements and attacks deserved the applause. Look, this is the power of love. Fang Minghua slapped his leg, laughing at Du Ming. The other Samsara players nodded their heads and applauded. Whether it was the power of love or not, Du Ming had made a beautiful play. It was an exceptional display of skill that could definitely woo any girl. Thinking of this, several Samsara players glanced towards Happy's seats, at Tang Rou. But what they saw was Tang Rou watching the match intently. She seemed to have an expression of worry on her face. It didn't look like she had been enchanted at all by Du Ming's incredible play. It's not enough, Du Ming. A bit more. Du Ming's teammates cheered him on. Du Ming continued to perform, but he wasn't thinking about all that. Beating the opponent in front of him was everything right now. He had to focus on this goal. Tang Rou. She might be one source of motivation, but she wouldn't be on his mind right now. He only had one thing on his mind: beat his opponent. Sword light flashed. With the colliding stab landing, he had closed the distance between himself and Dancing Rain. Moon Luring Frost immediately started his assault, using the blossoming blood to perform a brightly colored dance. Beautiful. The crowd applauded again. He had dragged Dancing Rain out of the satellite beam beautifully, and his follow-up had been beautiful as well. Sumuchung wasn't going to just have Dancing Rain stand there like a dead tree. She kept searching for a chance to escape, but the interweaving sword light locked her in place. She would occasionally find an opportunity to attack from close range, but these attacks never created any substantial opportunities for her. She didn't give up, but even when Dancing Rain fell, no opportunity had come. One combo to death. Even though Dancing Rain only had 59% health to begin with, killing her in one combo was an incredible performance from Du Ming. His Moon Luring Frost had only lost 12% of his health. Du Ming had closed the 59% lead by 47%. There was only a difference in 12% health between the two sides. Du Ming didn't get too pleased with himself over this point. The instant Dancing Rain was killed, he immediately waved away Sumuchung from his mind. Next, Du Ming was already thinking. There was a bit of a gap in his thoughts right afterwards. If I win the next one, then I can meet with Tang Rou. And his next opponent was Fang Rui and his Boundless Sea. End chapter.